What's good, YouTube? And today we're going to do a run through on some new information that I got for Extreme Reactors for Minecraft 1.12.2. If you haven't yet, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, that bell icon, and possibly give a like. Now let's dive right into this.
Check this out.
So as you see here, this is my old tutorial for Extreme Reactors, and I go through and I build a couple of reactors and I show you guys a couple things. Now, in my long drawn out process, and by the way, a horrible mic at that point, I came through after a couple months or so of it being posted, and there was some new information that got put out to me. So I wanted to make sure I was going over it, clearing with you guys what that information is. And I have a couple of snippets that I want to go ahead and throw up at you and show you guys and read through for you guys to see. Now, I know I made some comments in the past. I said stuff about, don't use the glass because, on servers, there's some rendering issues. It causes TPS to drop. But there was also some information on how a lot of that was absolutely wrong 100%, and that's not the case. It's mainly a client side deal, and that you just need to figure out how to tell your players, look, suck it up. You either have a bad PC that's a potato or you don't. And that's kind of the rundown. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at one of the screenshots that I have of a very knowledgeable player member, whoever it may be, of this information. So as lengthy as this is, this member, dwerg2k, said that when you make the 3x3 core, you don't need coolant in the corners. You put in spaces diagonal to the cores, doesn't matter. It will produce exactly the same energy and consume exactly the same fuel. I fit it with regular Minecraft glass. Any non-reactor block works. So the fluids don't look ugly. Another tip I read about but haven't tried myself yet is to sacrifice some efficiency and power output to get a decent reactor earlier without making tons of gelid cryothium. What you can do is just have the corners on the 3x3 4 rods, leave the center air, put graphite between the rods, build a wall of some inexpensive material from the graphite to the reactor walls, like even cobblestone, leaving a space on top of it, and put the gelid cryothium on it. The cryothium source will stay on top, but there will be streams on either side of it running down adjacent to the cores. Fill the corners with an inexpensive block and you would save a lot of cryothium. That setup inside a 9x9 casing, 7x7 internally, will just set you back 8 buckets of gelid cryothium, regardless of how tall you build it. The taller you build it, the more efficient it will be too. The edit to that was I test it and can confirm it works. It produces less power than your setup at 7.4 thousand RF per tick, but at only 0.075 millibuckets per tick. The main thing is that it outputs a decent amount at the cost of just 8 buckets of cryothium instead of 120. I made a control reactor which I filled all around with cryothium and made no difference. I also copied your reactor and it can output 14.2 thousand RF at 0.17 millibuckets per tick. Yours didn't because you didn't fill up the rods completely. Your design is less effective, less efficient, cost 112 buckets of cryothium more and a lot more with additional layers, but it will output more power while taking up less space. So next here I get called out just a tad bit, but besides him saying wrong, he goes into explaining the whole reactor glass and the rendering behind it and more truth onto it. So he says the server doesn't render anything. It just tells the client what block and entities are where. It's the client, and more specifically, the client's graphics card, that does the actual rendering, drawing the graphics and displaying it. You could have a billion blocks of liquid and transparent blocks in one area and experience absolutely zero lag, given the liquid doesn't move if you aren't near it. However, your client may lag or crash if you go there and your client tries to render those chunks. Static blocks and fluids don't strain a server. Only blocks and entities that change the state does. It doesn't matter if you hide your cryothium behind opaque blocks, both the server and the client knows exactly what's behind the opaque blocks. The server doesn't do any less calculations if it's visually hidden. The server doesn't give a damn if it's visible or not. sorry for the language. It will send you the information about every block and every chunk your client requests regardless. However, you may notice a very slight difference in FPS as your graphics card has to do a few more calculations to render and display transparent blocks. Another player on a server will notice zero difference if they don't look directly at your transparent blocks. In the case of this mod, no part of the reactor puts any more load on the server than an identically sized chunk of dirt or stone, except for when fuel is used and or added, because it updates the core blocks. And the actual calculations for power production, fuel consumption, temperature, etc., so using glass wherever possible will not affect anyone else on the server unless they're staring right at it and their graphics card sucks enough as it is. Rest assured, it goes into basically stating that if you have a potato and you're playing with a potato, you're gonna get crap. But if you have a decent computer that you know can handle graphics and the calculations like it needs to, aka graphics card, your RAM, your CPU, all that stuff, you're gonna be fine. The majority ruling is that it's a client side problem, if it is one, and it's not something that is going to necessarily affect your server. So rest assured that my information, what I told you about servers, is wrong. I will at least say that if you are going to make a reactor, follow the prompts beforehand that I showed you and how he was explaining some of the builds he did and some of the efficiency builds. You probably don't want to go ahead and build a super humongous huge reactor. Agor servers are going to have their limitations and you can only build it so big anyways, but theoretically, this was all about how to make your reactor most efficient and small at the same time, not consume a bunch of fuel and also give a good output of power. So if it's any confusion, again, you can ask questions more below. But this was all the extra information I wanted to share, clear some things up, make sure that I'm, not giving anybody wrong information. Of course, giving wrong information leads to a lot of trouble and a lot of problems. So hopefully this clears everything. If you need to catch it again, go ahead, rewind, go back, see what I was saying, see what it was reading out, and other than that, just I guess enjoy the rest of the video. I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys some snapshots of kind of what I built at the end, and then I'll see you guys around on the next video. Y'all have a nice day.